On this spooky night of episode 46, The Fog, directed by John Carpenter, is it his scariest film? Let's find out on this episode of Video Villa Podcast. So this kicks off our ghost story of The Fog. However, unfortunately, my neighbor would not let me borrow their bonfire to give you a real ghost story. So I have our handy-dandy Ryobi. This is not a commercial. Flashlight. The batteries sometimes last as long as you want them to, and other times they do not, because you need to charge them. Anyways, for our Halloween episode, we are bringing you guys The Fog, directed by John Carpenter, but also written by John Carpenter and his wife at the time, or girlfriend.
Well, they
Deborah Hill.
They dated during Halloween, but at this time when they actually were making the movie, they were not together. They came up to but they came up with the idea to do the film while they were together. When they took a trip to visit Stonehenge, and apparently there was like this big, thick, ominous fog around it, which commonly is, and he was making a joke to her, and he was like, what do you think's beyond that fog? It was just eerie and creepy, and that's when they kind of got the idea for this. And then, years later, they end up making it, but at that point in time, he had actually, he was, they broken up, and I believe he was married to Audrey Barbeau. I'm pretty sure. I don't think they were just dating at the time. Stevie Wayne, that's the actress that plays Stevie Wayne.
Oh, gotcha.
So I'm pretty sure they were married at the time.
Oh, I thought Deborah Hill was who played Stevie Wayne.
No.
Oh, well, now I have to look up what his ex-girlfriend fling looks like.
Yeah. She was just like a writer producer.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. She. I don't think she's been in any of his films, like actually acting. I don't think so. I mean, John Carpenter's in this one for a little bit.
Yeah, in the very beginning.
Yeah. But this is one of our Halloween episodes.
Yes.
This isn't our Halloween episode. It's just one of them.
Yeah, this is our launch of our Halloween episodes for the month of October. So for every holiday month, like October or Christmas, really those two, we like to do not necessarily like a marathon style, but we try to get as many episodes as we can to cover our favorite holiday seasons. Yeah,
we cover the grounds of like stuff that we like. And to be honest, I don't think anything says spooky season like The Fog. I really do. Like this movie.
Even Ernest Scared Stupid.
Okay, well.
See, you got to challenge him.
I love Ernest Scared Stupid. That might be that's a Halloween movie. This is technically not a Halloween movie, but it's still a spooky movie. Like it starts opening up with a ghost story and so forth. So that's why I thought it'd be great. And also, like, to be honest, I don't think a lot of people really talk about The Fog. When people start talking,
I've never heard of it.
Well, I know, but like when people start talking about like John Carpenter, I mean, they always bring up The Thing, Halloween, Big Trouble, Little China, They Live. Then you get into the people that are big fans. So then they always bring up In Mouth of Madness, Prince of Darkness. Everyone always just skips right over The Fog. Even like when I've watched other podcasts where it's like, what's your favorite John Carpenter film and stuff? No one ever brings up The Fog, or no one ever talks about The Fog. And I don't know why. It's like, I know it was not a big hit, but like, to be honest, I really think it is a good movie. Mm-hmm. Like, I really like this movie. I like the feel of it. I like the directing of it. You asked the question in the beginning, is it his scariest film? I mean, we'll find out at the end, but to be honest, I remember the first time I saw this, and it literally did scare me. Like, I really did get some jump scares out of it because, it is big on jump scares and so forth. So I really do think that this movie, yes, might be traditional, like scary, like you don't want to go to sleep, but it definitely has some jump scares. But to be honest, like, I don't know, like, I'm sure there are movies that had jump scares before this one, but I feel like this movie is jump scare heavy. And as far as movies that I can recall, you know, I'm sure someone's going to call me out on this, but as far as movies I've seen personally, to like actually like jump scares where like music's involved, this is probably, I mean, the one that I can think of, like the earliest dated one that I've seen personally, that you can really tell, like, you know, there is a scene plus heavy music, you know. I mean, because the Conjuring series and, you know, a lot of movies that James Wan does, you know, are a lot of jump scares. Sinister is probably, I think, stated like has the most jump scares in it or something like that, or like the scariest jump scares based off like a heart meter or something like that.
No.
Did you ever see that one?
No.
Yeah, it's pretty
What
fucked
movie?
up. Sinister.
No.
You're already listening. You're like, no. What movie again?
No, unfortunately, when we record these videos, we have a lot of like background noise between our animals. So sometimes I'm like honed in on that. Like, can you hear it? Can you not hear it? Are they going to stop? So although I'm listening to you, I'm also trying to calculate how much background noise we actually are having.
But yeah, I mean, like, if you're new to the channel, when it is typically a movie that Becca has not seen, we do usually wait till the end to figure out what her personal opinion is.
Don't let him lie. I got restricted to only talk about it in the end because if you look back at our Shining episode, I have very strong feelings about it. That came out just a little way too early. Way too early.
Yeah, that review lost a lot of momentum in the beginning of it.
Yep.
We never picked it back up.
So I've been pushed to the end.
But as far as the John Carpenter movies that we've seen together so far, could you at least tell me, like, did you like it more than like Big Trouble in Little China?
I mean, it's a completely different movie.
I know, but still, like, you know,
so you can't compare it. They're not apples to apples. So how can you compare them together?
I don't know. I feel like there's still like you can still like a movie, you can still like a movie other than another movie based off.
But the reasons I like that one would probably be different than the reasons I like this one versus my dislikes towards that one would probably be different than my dislikes towards this one.
Right.
So I mean, we've seen some like Halloween related, you know, John Carpenter movies. So
well, yeah, this isn't better
than
Halloween. I'll just
I would say this isn't necessarily worse or better than, you know, the other ones.
Yeah, I understand. Like, yeah, because we've seen, we've watched together Halloween, and I know we watched The Thing together.
Yeah.
So I guess you can put them in those same categories. Which, when we get into The Thing, you can definitely tell there's like a different change and shift in the way John Carpenter shot his films, because John Carpenter wasn't really a gore guy. Him and Deborah Hill, when they got together, they liked the more of the suspense nature. They didn't feel the necessary to show a lot of gore. Like, for example, like if you go back and watch Halloween, there is no gore in Halloween. Yeah. There's none. You know, it is like, it literally is just suspense, terror, and the way the atmosphere of the film is shot and so forth. Like, that is what makes it scary. You can scare people without showing them a bunch of just like
senseless gore.
Exactly. But which was hard because now we're in the 80s, and this came out in 1980, and that is what people liked then. People were really starting to get into gore, with Friday 13th and so forth like that. So we're talking about like, this is when the slasher franchise started to take off, and people started to see a little bit more violence in their horror films that were, not your typical like Fulci style films or something like that, or like Italian films that were usually pretty bloody and gory. So I definitely think this movie is unique. I definitely think it has a lot of attributes to it that a lot of people don't point out. And to be honest, I feel like a lot of people might not have seen it because they might just think it's kind of boring talking about ghost stories and so forth and pirate ships. And
I like ghost stories.
I know, it's pretty cool. I really think the story in itself is basically based off of a real story, where technically it is The Fog, where a ship came in to what's called during a foggy night or some sort, and they misread a campfire as the lighthouse, and they end up running into a rocky shore, which caused the ship to sink, which is technically the story of the movie, but a little bit different because we add a little bit more backstory of why the ship was sunk and so forth. Which we'll get more into that actually once we start to actually dissect the movie and get into like breaking it down and doing beat by beat. But so far at this point, I mean, John Carpenter he's done Assault on Precinct 13. Then we get Assault on Precinct 13. These two movies came out in the same year, about a month apart from each other. But he did do Somebody's Watching Me first, and then he went in after doing that film, went into Halloween. But Halloween came out first, and then like a month later, 2 months later, then what's called Somebody's Watching Me aired on TV, which that was a made-for-TV movie. And then after that, he went on to do the Elvis movie. And due to the success from Halloween, Avco Embassy Films actually reached out to John Carpenter, and they were like, listen, we love what you did with Halloween. And he was kind of shocked. He was like, what? What do you mean? He's like, it didn't do well. He's like, what are you talking about? It's doing awesome right now, because they put the movie out and they thought it was a flop. They didn't realize that how much money this little movie that they made was actually making for an independent film. And it was actually doing very successful. So it was picking up steam, and they didn't even know it. They were moving on to the next project. So they were shocked when he got that call. He was like, oh shit, it's doing well. He's like, yeah. So we want 2 movies from you. And so he ended up doing The Fog and then Escape from New York, which we got to check out. Cool. We got to check out for my birthday at the Basie Cinemas.
That along with Mouth of Madness. And the Mouth of Madness.
And the Mouth of Madness. And we got to check that out with the whole tape hell, which at the time of this airing, if it's posted, I'll post up the next showing up, the Midnight Madness, that Chris Barr over there. You check him out on the Instagram. He's doing some really cool stuff.
Tape_hell, I believe.
Yeah. Yep. And then he's doing some really cool stuff over there. So if you're in the New Jersey Red Bank area, you should definitely check it out if you get to. It definitely brings home some classic nostalgia feelings of seeing movies that you love in the big theater, and also, if you've never seen some of the films that he's showing, it's the perfect place to watch it for the first time.
Yeah. However, it is a little late at night. And if you are like Logan, although you love going, you might use it as a little bit of a nap time, because that's one thing about Logan is if he is tired, he will be napping no matter where he's at.
I watched all of In Mouth of Madness, but yes, I got a little sleepy.
It's a long day.
Well, also I think about a little sugar crash from my elf cake probably.
Yeah, your one slice.
That was a big slice though.
Yeah, it was a good cake.
Yeah, it was great.
But yeah, if you're ever in the area or willing to travel to the area, Chris puts on a great show at the Basie. I think it's every Saturday.
Every other.
Yep. Every other Saturday with 2 options of double features, and you can kind of bounce between theaters and which one you're interested in seeing. And he's usually always filming something or showing something really cool out there. Yeah.
It's very, I wish we lived closer so we can go more often.
Yes.
But yeah, so like back to The Fog. So this movie, it is definitely like to circle back around. It's definitely a movie I kind of think that a lot of people have skipped on it because they don't think it's scary. And when they look through the John Carpenter catalog, they might not find it interesting. And sometimes I think some people are just burned from the awful, I think it was 2005 remake. Mm-hmm. So I feel like people never really care to go back and rewatch and check out the original from 1980. Because it's crazy because, to be honest, when they wrapped up filming this movie, when they got the final product at the end, when they took it back to the editing room, it apparently was not good. Like, John Carpenter was not happy with it. He just didn't think it worked. He didn't think it was a good movie. And he basically had a feeling of like, okay, what do I do? I got a little bit of time left. Can I fix this? Or do I count it as a loss? And unfortunately, it's, I didn't do a good job. Because at this point in time, like, every product that he had made, he had enjoyed it. Maybe he didn't feel like maybe some people, as far as like fans, people in like, not fans, but I'm saying like the mass majority of the public may not have enjoyed it. Because his whole goal was, I don't make film for reviews. I make movies that I want to make. That's it. If you start making, his quote is, if you start making movies for good reviews, then that's when you're in trouble.
Yeah.
So every final product, him to this point, he was happy with, and he was very pleased with. So to make something and then to go around after it's said and done, be like, ooh, shit. This night isn't too good. You know what I mean? I don't like, for me being, just a mild, I mean, hell, for sometimes doing the podcast, I'll be editing the podcast. I'm like, oh God, I don't know if this is a good episode. And I will say, like, I know that's small potatoes compared to like a big massive movie where people invested a lot of money into. But still, like I understand it on a small level, be like, shit, and then, eventually, like, maybe over the time through editing it, I'll be like, okay, maybe it's not as bad when I actually get the final product.
But yeah, there's even ones like episodes that we've launched and been like, let's see, let's find out. And sometimes those are your best episodes. That's what I've learned in this whole podcasting scheme of things, is sometimes the ones where you're like, ouch, that might not be too great, actually pan out very well.
Yeah, I know. I think I agree with that 100%. So what he ended up doing is he ended up go back and doing some reshoots for this film. So a couple of the reshoots, I actually, I'll show some of the stuff that I can, which I did find a clip. So apparently he had a jump scare scene that he created and it just wasn't working. It was not good. He just said it wasn't scary and there was just something with it. They couldn't do anything with it. So, that was a scene when it's Nick and Elizabeth on the boat, and the jump scare that you get with the opening of the locker and the jump scare of the guy falling on her. That was not originally what we were going to see. Originally, she was pulling like some maps out of a cupboard, and came out of the cupboard, which you can find that on the blooper reel, which was kind of cool. So I watched a lot. I have the Shout Factory right here, the collector's edition, which has a blooper reel and some documentaries behind it and stuff like that. So I was able to find that clip there. So I'll show that here. And so they end up redoing that shot. The whole intro of the poltergeist styling of like the cars going crazy and the like 7-Eleven or whatever you want to call it, convenience store being weird and things cracking and breaking, that was reshot. Whatever the scene, the end lighthouse scene with Stevie on top of the white lighthouse, that was an old new reshot. They actually brought Barbeau in, so when she comes front with the like leopard ghost, and you see they called him Worm Face, and it's all green and slimy. Barbeau did the special effects for that, which was really cool. And then what else was it? And the whole seagrass killing scene with Buckflower and all the other crewmen, that was all when they're on top of the boat and they actually, get stabbed and hooked and all that stuff and sword going through. That was all reshots too. Which to think that those scenes weren't even in the movie, I was like, oh, well, that's a good thing that they added it, because they just didn't feel like it didn't have that sense of terror. And that's what they were trying to go for, because it is a horror movie. And I will say, you watch this movie, and if you haven't seen it for the first time, I strongly suggest you watch it. Go turn off all the lights and turn the music, turn the volume up really loud, because John Carpenter comes back once again to do an amazing score. And I have the little 45 there, which has the Ghost Story song and then the main fog scene song, which is the fog theme song. I feel like is maybe second to Halloween. I mean, the Halloween theme song is like perfect.
Yeah.
I feel like the fog theme song is his second best piece of work. Hands down. I mean, like, yes, Halloween 3 is amazing. It's very memorable and stuff like that. And the Mouth of Madness is really good too. But I mean, I really feel like the fog theme song, in my personal opinion, to be honest, like, it's really neck and neck with Halloween, if not like I said, Halloween is perfect, but like, if you haven't listened to it, pull it up on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. I mean, Apple Music or whatever. Listen to it. It is chilling and it's fantastic. I love that soundtrack. I need to get the full soundtrack. I only have that just has the singles on it. And then I got the little cool Cavity Color Blake action figure, where's this? It should still work. Yeah. And his eyes glow up. Zoom in on that one. His toy's cool. And also, I meant to add, to even get more traction, they even redid the entire poster. So Jamie Lee Curtis, if you watch the film, Jamie Lee Curtis is, this is the poster that was released, but that was not the actual release of the film. It actually was just more of an ominous fog, like like kind of like literally like just like a ghost story thing. They ended up throwing her because she was getting traction at the time, so they put her on the front of it, and that wasn't their original intent, but they needed something to kind of get people in. So they threw her on the front, which, like I said, she's not even like technically. I don't know, like maybe Stevie Wayne is the main character, I would say. So for Liza to be on the front, it's kind of they do that a lot.
Yeah.
Like for example, my DVD over there for the movie Intruders got Bruce Campbell right on the front, but Bruce Campbell's in the movie for maybe a minute and 20 seconds. That like maybe not even hell. He's probably not even in it that long, and they have it smacked right there on the front.
I feel like Stevie and Elizabeth were equally in the film, though.
I just feel like
it wasn't too far off.
I feel like Stevie is more of the main character because she does narrate a lot of the movie. Like, and you hear her constantly throughout the film because she is the voice of the radio station and stuff like that. So I guess that's kind of like why I had that feel that maybe she is like the main character. I mean, the fog in itself is a character. I mean, the way they shot the fog is so freaking cool. So what they end up doing is to get the fog to go through the city, and how they were able to impose like the fog throughout the city as it comes in from like the long wide shots. What they end up doing is they created a matte background, okay, and then they went into the matte background and they started to build like three-dimensional shapes, okay. So what they to basically be what the picture was taken of. So they start to like kind of like it was like put stuff down on a black backdrop, and they put things underneath a black curtain or like a covering area that gave it the shape of the buildings, and then they would put dry ice so it would come in slow and onto the ground, and that would come in, and as it hits the shapes that would represent the actual buildings, so then they would layer that on top of a mat of a picture. So as it comes in, it would give you that three-dimensional look of it going around the buildings and stuff like that, which was really cool. And then for the rest of the shots would be actually just fog machines, heavy duty fog machines. And to get some other shots, it was really cool because they would shoot stuff backwards to make it look like all of a sudden the fog is going away and so forth. A lot of really cool way that this movie was shot for, the time. Once again, I feel like people need to see this because it's really cool how this movie was made. And I don't know, like, I don't know what it is, but I really like, I'm not a big ghost guy either, but I really like how it's kind of like not like a true, like it is a true ghost story, but at the end of the day, it's a revenge story. And I love revenge stories. It's all about people that were done wrong coming back 100 years later to make things right for the awful things that were done to them. And unfortunately, like those people are not around that they would like that deserve the punishment. So people have to take their place. Poor people that have nothing to do with it end up being, wrapped into things, which is cool because when people die, it's like, oh shit, I don't want that person to die. They had nothing to do with this.
Yeah.
It makes people's death warranted where not warranted because that means like they deserve it. Yeah. They unwarranted and whatever, you know what I mean? Which I don't know about you, but like that's what I like in a movie. Like if I don't want something to die and then they end up dying, like the care for the character is one of the things that I really like. I really get myself immersed in. You know what I mean? I don't know if you feel the same way when you watch a movie because that kind of.
I feel that way when I watch shows and they kill people off. I've cried over them killing people off.
Yeah. Well, you were talking about like the Chicago Med show or the PD one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one character, Casey Jones. Casey Jones, yeah.
What are you talking about?
Then they killed Casey Jones, his character.
Well, yeah, but I didn't really care much about that one. I cried when they killed off Leslie in fire.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I mean,
but those are the moments where, like, I don't know about you, but I started crying. I'm like, why the fuck am I crying? I didn't even care about people like this in real life.
No, no, no.
I mean, I do, but
No, no, don't talk to me. I have no shame in crying. You know me. Jesus.
I know.
She has to sit beside me while we watch movies all the time. She's like, "Are you crying?" No. My eyes are just sweating.
Yeah, sure. There's nothing wrong with being sensitive,
My
though.
eyes are really hot. It's hot in here.
See, I grew up being like hypersensitive, hypersensitive. But as I've like entered, adult or older teen years and adulthood, I don't cry as much, really, ever.
Yeah, I will say, it is very rare for me to look over and see you crying over something that's not worth crying over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially shows and stuff. But yeah, for some reason, Leslie in Chicago Med, that shit got to me. I was like really hooked on her character.
Well, I mean, that happens a lot. I mean, like to
That's
me,
the whole point. That's when you make a good show.
yes.
That's when you've made a good show or a good movie, when you've had such great character development that your audience is so attached to them that they have an empathetic response to it.
No, yeah, 100%. I mean, like it's the vibe and the not the vibe, but like the raw emotion
Yeah.
that a scene like that is able to tap into you, even though you know it's not real, but you can feel the connection with something that's not real. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's just like they teach you that in like early writing in English class and stuff. I think you have like ethos and pathos, which is like one of them is targeting towards the emotions and like hooking in your audience through the emotions people feel when they read or watch things.
Yeah, I get that.
I think those were the two words, but yeah. We'll put a blurb in here in case I'm wrong.
I don't know. I won't even fact check you. I'm sure you're right.
I will after I'm done, just so I know.
But yeah, I mean, the one last thing I did want to cover just before we start to move on and start talking about more of the nitty gritty of the movie and breaking it down. But what they had Dean Cundey came back in as the director of photography, which John Carpenter has a way of directing, but Dean Cundey has a way of setting up the look and tone of John Carpenter's film. And he went on to do a very successful career. And he did multiple of John Carpenter's films. I mean, we're talking about Halloween, Escape from New York, Halloween 2, Halloween 3, The Thing, Big Trouble in Little China. I mean, he definitely has a way of setting up the shots and getting the atmosphere just right for these films, because this film, if it's anything, it is an atmospheric film. The way they shot the scenes and the way that they chose to do a ultra wide screen, they did 2.35, which wasn't super common at that point in time, and it was so to be a very hassle. But you even said it because we were talking about like when we were watching the lighthouse scene. You're like, "Whoo, that's a lot of steps," but you felt the isolation of her being all the way out there by herself by getting that entire scene in that shot. Like what, that whole like, later would come back like, oh, she's out here in the middle of nowhere. And it's not like she can escape because look at all those steps she would have to go through. You know what I mean? Like those kind of atmospheric scenes and how that, how you're putting that on the big screen, even to the point where you're just seeing the beach and the little boy finding the driftwood. It's beautifully shot. You know what I mean? And stuff like that, I definitely think makes films that John Carpenter much higher tier than your average just horror schlocky mess. Which I like schlock, don't get me wrong. But when it comes to something like a John Carpenter film, you really do have something special in these early years. Now, I mean, what is it? If it goes to Mars, gets a little murky there. That's later in his career, but his early career, I mean, this was prime A, grade A stuff. But yeah, why don't you read us the back of the VHS?
John Carpenter's temporary tale of supernatural horror features an all-star cast, including Adrienne Barbeau, Jamie Lee Curtis, Hal Holbrook, Janet Leigh, and John Houseman. An exceptional cinematography and intriguing plot make The Fog one of the best scares ever made. See for yourself if you dare. A weather-beaten old fisherman tells an ancient tale of betrayal and death to fascinate children as they huddle together by their campfire. As a piece of driftwood in a child's hand glows with spectral light, an eerie fog envelopes the bay. From its mist emerges dripping demonic victims of a century-old shipwreck seeking revenge. I like how they didn't even put Tom Atkins in the back.
Oh, they didn't?
No. Adrienne, Jamie Lee Howe, and Janet John.
Janet Lee, you mean?
Huh?
Janet Lee?
Yeah, Janet and John.
Oh, you said Janet and John. I thought you said Janet John. I was like, you mean Janet Lee?
No, Janet and John. Completely skipped over Tom Atkins.
Which, by the way, we met Tom Atkins.
He's one of the many old men that we have met. I cluster them all together as old men.
He was the sweetest.
Yes.
He was nothing but a delight. He was, like, I always tell people, like, meeting John Atkins is like if my dad was famous, meeting my dad for the first time. He was the sweetest old man.
No, it wasn't that one. I was like, is that the one where we completely matched with the guy? That was a different guy.
No.
There's another photo out there.
That's Michael Ironside.
Yeah. There's another photo out there where we just accidentally, to the T-shirt and pants matched with.
Yeah, he's like jeans. And
black shirt. Yeah. We're like, whoops.
He was sweet too. He was great.
Yeah,
which is funny because he always plays a villain. So the fact that he's the nicest guy, he was like so nice. And he was like one of the cool people, like he would love to talk to you. Like if you brought up one movie, oh yeah, I'll tell you this. And he would tell you a story about shooting the movie. And I was like, oh man, that's so cool. Like I think it was like he was telling a story I think about when he was doing Scanners with Cronenberg. I can't remember. Or it could have been even Starship Troopers. I can't remember, but it was pretty cool. That's one thing that's one reason. Like I like meeting people like that when they end up being like, just sweet, kind people.
It solidifies your interest in them.
Oh yeah, it definitely it connects what you thought with the person,
or would you hope they'd be?
Yeah, and then it like makes it concrete.
Yeah,
and you're like, okay, cool. Now I can sleep easy at night knowing that that's a good person.
Yeah. So the movie starts off, as the back of the VHS says, with a foggy kind of like ghost story. It's children around a fire, including Danny is his name, right?
Danny, yeah.
Danny, who is Stevie's son. And they are talking to a fisherman around a fire who tells a tale about how at midnight, these victims of a shipwreck come back to land to seek revenge for their death, essentially.
Yeah.
However, from my understanding, I think he says that it only lasts from the hour of 12 to 1.
Yeah, I can't remember if that is in the story or not, but that is the rules.
Yeah. So it's not necessarily, he doesn't explain why, but you find out why later on.
Yeah, once we find the journal, we get a good idea of like what's going on, because the things that start to happen. I get the events are like the day before it's the birthday, but it's the very first of the birthday if you take it. It's the beginning of the day of the birthday, and then it happens again at the end of the day of the new day after the birthday. But yeah, we get this great scene of him telling the ghost story. And then after we get the ghost story, we get the basically see all these eerie shots of weird things happening around town.
Yeah, that evening.
Cars alarms are going off.
Literally, as soon as that started, I was like, okay, poltergeist, which is funny because when we watched the behind the scenes, they said like that's what they were going for.
Exactly. They were going for like a ghostly possession of worldly things.
Yeah. Of objects.
Of objects, yes. The drinks, cars, the gas pumps, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And this happens throughout the film. Doors opening when they shouldn't open, bodies that are dead getting up and walking to
collapse again.
To collapse and to like just release some kind of new information. Well, that was another scene I forgot to add, but that was a scene that was added too. The corpse scene in the morgue. Mm-hmm. That was a new scene that wasn't originally made, and they added that in, which was really cool because I think that scene is probably one of the. It's a chilling scene because you know he's fucked up, but John Carpenter doesn't show you that he's fucked up. You know what I mean? He kind of hides it, which I think makes it even kind of scarier for the fact that you don't see the damage of what happened to him.
I mean, but they tell you about it all.
Exactly. Yeah. They just tell you about it. You can kind of see it in the distance, but you just kind of, they just let you know what happened to that body.
We also meet Father Malone at the church, and you get a jump scare. because as he's in the church, again, the poltergeist type activity starts to happen. So, like, I think a stone fell
So
off the
yeah, a
wall.
stone falls out of the wall, hits the radio. Then the radio goes off. And this is just right after we had our little small scene with John Carpenter. And it kind of sets up it's setting up Father Malone to be a drunk. He's drinking,
Yeah.
and he kind of might not be the best pastor because, we basically get John Carpenter ask him, like, can I get paid, Father? And he's like, how about this? Instead of getting paid, why don't you come, instead of coming at 4 a.m, why don't you come in at 6 a.m? It's like, oh,
Yeah.
it's kind of like starting like, maybe this father guy isn't the greatest guy.
Yeah.
And then, yes, we get a good jump scare scene, which I think it's like probably, what I took it as like, they're not aware of their past, but they know it's been 100 years and they're coming back. So they're making sure that they know what's coming their way.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like we said, like poltergeist activity. Like, I feel like they unhinged the stone so he could find the journal and learn the past of the town.
Yeah.
Because I think they want them to know why we're doing what we're doing.
Yeah. Speaking of the journal, so this is also where Father Malone finds his father's journal. And in this journal, it kind of explains what's going to happen on the birthday of the town.
Yeah, exactly. It's, we get a little bit more intel later when Janet Leigh's character comes. But at this point in time, we just see that it is his grandfather's journal. We see the title. After this, it cuts to another scene there where we get introduced to Nick and Elizabeth. Nick is driving down the road and he's picking up Elizabeth in his car. She's hitchhiking from Pasadena all the way to Vancouver, I think it was.
Yeah.
And she asks the funny question. She's like, I've never done this before, but I need to ask you one question. And she's like, are you weird? And he goes, well, matter of fact, I am weird. Yes, I am. And it's funny because it's the weirdest thing is like to ask a question, him just be like, yep, I'm a little weird.
Yeah, I mean, that's like hitchhiking and then asking the person, like, are you a murderer? Like, how are they supposed to answer that question? Even if they were, they're not going to be like, yeah, definitely. Obviously, I picked you up.
But yeah, as they're talking in middle conversation, bam, the window explodes from both sides. And this is another kind of activity that's been taking place because this isn't the only place it's happened. Throughout the town, other things of glass, clocks, temperature gauges, a lot of people's windows are cracking, exploding, and stuff like that. So it's not just them. It's the entire town are starting to notice weird types of activity that are happening between the hours of 12 and 1.
Yeah. Also, the funny thing is, so Elizabeth makes a comment, mind you, after she got in the car, she said this was her first time doing this. But then she refers back to, well, last time I did this. And he's like, I thought this was the first time. And she was like, well, it is today, or something along those lines.
Yeah, well, it's I can't remember what she said, but apparently, like, it was like her 70th hitchhike, she says, or something like that. It's crazy.
Yeah.
We get a little bit more backstory behind her later. So now it cuts to a trawler ship out on the sea, and it's the Seagrass.
It's a bunch of drunk shipmen.
Basically.
Getting ready to call it a night.
Yeah, and then throughout the movie, you have the radio station. You get Stevie Wayne, and she's slowly talking through the different radios throughout the movie. And then we also get her perspective of what's going on because she also has a relationship with the weatherman. Because, think of it, a fog's coming in and we need that. It's usually weather related. So obviously that makes more sense for us to figure out how the fog is moving based off of, meteorologists and so forth, how you can connect the story together or whatever. And so she's talking on the radio saying a fog's coming in and so forth, and just to let everyone know. And, they're looking out the window, there ain't no fog coming in. And all of a sudden a fog does arrive, and they start to hear this clankering up on the top of the boat. They go outside to inspect it, and it's an old ship. Old ship. And it just came out of nowhere. And they go to basically inspect it, and they see mysterious figures basically on the top of the ship. And before they can actually understand what's going on, that's when we get our basically first kill of the night.
Yeah.
And they the ghosts have killed the two older gentlemen.
That are on the bow of the boat.
Yeah, they stab them through the stomach. They gut them with with a hook, and they stab them in the chest. And they end up making their way to the bottom of the boat, and they kill the young guy.
Yeah.
And they end up basically, as we find out, they rupture his eye sockets with their thumbs.
Yeah.
And it's really, really like I said, it's not gory. You know, people in this movie, they get stabbed, they get cut. We don't really see any blood, but just because we don't see blood doesn't mean it's not impactful.
Yeah.
Personally, in my personal opinion.
And then not only that, while Stevie's getting the weather report from the weather guy, they're also like, they're kind of flirting. And she ends up saying, if you don't have anything good to say, then I need to get off the phone because I don't like being on the phone when I'm on the air. I have things to do or whatever.
Yeah, so, she's like, because he obviously really likes her. He's been trying to flirt with her and so forth. And he's been calling her back and forth. And he make the little joke where she's like, well, I don't like talking on the phone because I talk all day for my job and stuff like that. And it's very funny because this movie's really cool because we get like basically a lot of people from the Halloween movies come back for this one. You get Nancy Keys, and this is Charles Cypher, and then Jamie Lee Curtis, which is kind of cool because I mean, even like Charles Cypher, he was even in Halloween. They even brought him back for Halloween Kills, and I mean, he had a pretty decent role in Halloween Kills. But yeah, I mean, it's fun seeing a John Carpenter film when there's other people that's been in other John Carpenter film coming back because it just seems like a bunch of like friends making movies together.
Yeah. So then we cut into bed, and Nick and Elizabeth are in bed trying to get to know each other. Which they go from hitchhiking to now sleeping with each other.
That's the funny thing. Yeah. They already slept with each other, and now they're starting to get to know each other.
Yeah, and make conversation. She explains how she's trying to get to Vermont, or is it Vermont? Vancouver. And that's why she's traveling, and I keep wanting to call him Tom. Nick kind of just makes some casual conversation with him until they hear someone knocking on the door, kind of like banging on the door.
Yeah, and this is a really cool, eerie scene because to think of it, put yourself in this scenario. You're laying in bed with somebody, and it's almost 1 a.m, and you hear her knocking at your door.
Yeah.
And you see this just foggy lights with a mysterious figure. I'm no offense, but like, who the fuck's at my house?
Yeah.
At almost 1 a.m, and why the fuck are they knocking at my door?
You know what I do to people that do stupid shit like that at our door? I set the alarm off. We have a security system, and same thing with, what are they called? Salespeople. The people that go.
Oh, yeah, the solicitors and
solicitors.
Stuff
like. Hell yeah. I just set the alarm off. And they can listen to sirens until they walk away. And I will watch them on video until they do. There ain't no need to go knock. It is 2024. Call me. If you don't call me, then you shouldn't be here. Point blank. I don't do surprises.
Well, it's definitely at almost 1 something in the morning.
Yeah, no.
So he puts his pants on to go check out what's going on. And I mean, no offense, but like first off, that scared the shit. I wouldn't even got out of bed. I mean,
well, he didn't see that. He had to go through the doorway into like the breezeway to see the front door.
Yeah, and that's another thing is a lot of the people in this movie, since it's like a seaside, it's like a oceanside town, seaside town,
a shore town.
A shore town. A lot of people have like doors with just glass openings and stuff like that too, because you live with a beautiful view, and typically people that have that, they want to be able to see it from the side of the house. But yeah, let's call it. By the time he gets to the door, he puts his head out and comes back in. We see a sickle or whatever it is, and basically right before it's about to come down on him, the clock strikes 1.
Yeah,
fog's gone, everything disappears. So that's when we kind of get the idea. I was like, oh, okay, so this started at 12 and it just turned 1 because we hear his clock go off.
Yeah.
So obviously there's some kind of rules in play here.
So we pan over now. It's like the next morning. So we've made it through the night. And so far, 3 people have died. So 3 shipmen have died from the fog. So as we pan over to the next morning, you get Danny on the beach, and he goes up on a jetty, so like a row of rocks, and he sees what is first a gold coin, but then the water splashes up, and the gold coin turns into a piece of driftwood that says Dane on it. And so he ends up deciding to pick that up and take it home with him.
Yeah, and he's super excited. He comes running in. He goes to show it to his mom. So his mom is Stevie, as we said earlier. And, she's living that radio life where she's on all night. So the fact that, like, him coming up in the AM to waking her up after she probably like, just got home.
Yeah, and she even says, she's like, I love you so much, but you annoy me. Which is so mean. So mean. But, yeah.
I'm not going to lie. That's nothing says parenting than that one statement right there.
Yeah.
You don't say it to your kid, but you can think it.
Yeah, you keep that shit to yourself. Tell your friends about it. Tell somebody else. Don't tell your kid. Anyways, so he brings it in and shows her, and she kind of just like writes it off at first. Is like, oh, cool. And she decides to take it with her to work. And while that's happening, Nick finds out that his buddies who were on the seagrass have not been heard from. So he heads down to the dock to see kind of what's going on and to ask around to the other fishermen, do they know what's going on?
Yeah, because they should have been there by now.
Yeah.
They should have made it to the port by now at this point, because that is what Nick does. Nick is a fisherman. He works with boats and so forth, and his friends were on that boat, and that was part of like what he does. And the fact that him technically, I guess you would say, showing up to work or doing whatever he does, for them not be there, it's concerning, because he knows them long enough. He knows they're drunks, but he knows them long enough like they would never get too drunk to not do the job.
Yeah. And then we also get an introduction to Miss Williams, who is the head fisherman that is on the seagrass that's gone missing. Her and I guess it's her assistant, Sandy. Miss Williams is pretty distressed because Mr. Williams has not come back on the ship, but she also has things to do because she's planning the town's 100th anniversary or birthday.
Yeah, she's getting it all ready for the mayor and so forth. And Sandy is like her aide. Yeah. And like, I swear, like Sandy is like, she is, oh God, her character annoys the fire out of me. But it's that like, like I don't really want to be here and I really don't give a shit about this job, but technically I'm still going to do the job.
Yeah.
It's kind of like one of those things is like, she said there's a quote later where she says, Sandy, I had never heard one say yes, ma'am, and that also sounds like screw you at the same time or something like that.
Yeah, and she says yes, ma'am, again after that. So they are heading to the church to see Father Malone because he is also an essential part of planning the 100th birthday of the town. So they head to the church at the town's church, and they're trying to find
Father
Malone. Yeah, I said Mr. Malone. Father Malone. And they're kind of like looking around in the study through the pews. And you get another jump scare because he jumps out from behind the partition walls after the pews.
Great scene,
and,
by the way.
Oh, I thought you were about to be like, that's not when that happened.
No, great scene. Like this scene, like it is chilling when he comes out of pitch darkness. But the fact is, you don't know he's literally about to just step up.
Yeah.
And yes, if you, after you've seen it and you've gotten scared from it or whatever, and you go back and rewatch it, you're like, so he just sat there and was just waiting for her to walk by to like get off the chair and scare her. Like, I kind of feel like you did that on purpose.
Probably. And this is where Father Malone decides to take them back into the study and sit down and read the journal that he had found from his father, or his grandfather, some sort of descendants from him.
It was his grandfather's, I believe, yeah.
Yeah. And he finds out that, I almost said the seagrass, the Elizabeth Dane. That's what's called, right?
The Elizabeth Dane, yeah.
Yeah, the Elizabeth Dane was purposely wrecked. So his grandfather could cash in the gold.
So yeah, so what the reason why it was purposely wrecked because Blake, the what's called one of this a rich leopard man who had the leopard disease, was going to settle in their town.
Leper.
What did I say?
Leopard.
I thought it was leopard. They're leopards.
No, there's leopards.
Leprosy, and then there are leopards.
Lepers. I think it's without the D.
Whatever. Anyway,
Tomato,
they have leprosy.
Potato.
And they were going to settle in their town, and they wanted to basically have their own congregation, their own colony of people in their town, and they would leave them alone, but they asked their permission before they started the move that, we would like to hold up shop over here.
Yeah.
And they did not want that to happen.
Unfortunately, the idea of having a leper colony that was also a rich leper colony, because lepers were seen to be, disgusting. It was a nasty disease. Absolutely disgusted Father Malone's grandfather.
And it's also, it's a contagious disease too.
Yeah. And it was unfortunate because Blake and grandfather Malone were actually really, really good friends. But Father Malone, grandfather Malone, and the rest of the congregation decided that it was best to get rid of Blake, so he couldn't go through with that. And the best way to do so was to, while Blake was out on his ship that evening, to call in a fake call and give him incorrect coordinates to crash him into some sort of rocks or whatever.
Well, they lit the fires.
Yeah.
They lit the fires to make them think that he would come to shore in a certain position, but they led him into the rocky parts of the shore.
Yeah.
And by doing so, caused the ship to sink and caused everyone to drown. And then they end up basically raiding the boat of his gold and to build the congregation and build the church and build the town.
Yeah. So he's sharing this with Miss Williams and Sandy because he's come to terms with the fact that it would be even more of a sin to celebrate the 100th birthday because this entire town was built off sinful choices or sinful
Murders.
behavior.
Yeah, and the fact that the people of the church would think to murder someone instead to welcome them is crazy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's like we are celebrating murderers.
Yeah. So Miss Williams doesn't really care. And she's like, well, we have put too much time in this and I'm going forward with this celebration. And Father Malone is pretty much like, well, then I don't want anything to do with it.
Yeah. And then in the meantime, while all this is going down, we also have Elizabeth and Nick. They're still searching for the seagrass, and word has came in that it might still be out there somewhere out at sea. So they're going to basically get on a buddy's boat and go out to the sea, to the area where possibly they might be. And they end up finding the seagrass and they go to inspect it. But once they get inside the seagrass, they've noticed that things just aren't right. He was just on the seagrass not just a couple of days ago. And now
he did their safety checks so they could go off.
Exactly. And now it's completely turned upside down, and he knows they wouldn't do that. He goes, I know they get drunk, but they would never get the drunk and leave the ship in this kind of condition. Also, things like the temperature gauge are broken. There's sea salt everywhere.
Yeah, everything was wet as if the ship had been overturned and turned back up right.
Exactly. And also there was rust everywhere to the point where almost like it had been out there for months on months on months.
Yeah.
When literally this was just over a course of a couple of days.
Really only like a day or two.
Well, yeah, I'm just saying for the last time he saw it.
Yeah.
And then as they're inspecting this, Nick starts to tell a story of kind of almost like a weird, eerie ghost story that his father had that told him of something that he experienced while he was a fisherman, of finding gold and so forth, finding a ship with gold on it, taking some of the gold back home to show him, and to turn around and the gold just disappeared by the time he got home. And in the midst of him telling that story, this is when we get a nice little jump scare where you see some poltergeist activity of a locker opening up and some stuff falling out of the locker. That's scary. You think it's over. Then, bam, we get hit with another jump scare of the corpse of the younger gentleman falling on top of Jamie Curtis. And his eyes are all nasty and swollen. Like I said, we don't get a lot of close up, but you just see
they
just
look
enough.
Like black holes, essentially.
Exactly. Yeah. It's just, and it's like, he looks like he's swollen too. You know what I mean? Which when we find out at the morgue what happened to his body, we'll find out. We'll talk about that then. But obviously something's happened.
So they end up trying to take care of that. They get the body, so now they need to get the body back to shore. And while that's happening, Stevie heads back for her nighttime shift, for the shift during the town's birthday party, to do her nighttime radio.
Yeah, she shows up with the driftwood in hand, and she's listening to some ad reads and so forth. And she puts down the driftwood while she's kind of getting some things ready to go and so forth. And you start to see that the driftwood starts to sweat, and water seems to start to pour out of it, which seems very, very weird. And then it starts to flood to the audio recorder.
So as it's bleeding into the tape recorder, it ends up playing almost like the tape's playing backwards, and then it fully cuts out, and she's trying to blot up the water. And you notice that the driftwood no longer says Dane, and it says 6 will die. And also it explodes, or it catches on fire, and she puts the fire out. And she's starting to panic because Danny is the person that grabbed this piece of wood, and she doesn't know what that means or what's going on here. So she calls home to talk to Danny, and also to make sure that Miss Kubrick made it, who is the babysitter. And she asks Danny to please stay home. Please stay home. She double checks with him the story of how he found the driftwood. He lets her know it was a gold coin, and then it turned into a piece of wood, and then he brought it home. And she just lets him know, begs and pleads with Danny to just not go outside, to stay inside all night with Miss Kubrick. And he kind of reluctantly agrees.
Yeah, and then while this is going on, it cuts back over to now Nick and Elizabeth have made it back to the hospital, and they are basically having the young gentleman's body inspected. And that's when we get a doctor's like, hey, what's going on here? Where'd you find him? And he's like, I told you, we went out to the seagrass, and there he was. He had algae underneath his fingers. He was covered in sea salt and so forth. And, his eyes looked like they'd been plunging into his skull. And he sat there, he goes, I understand that, but when did this happen? He's like, it just happened today. He's like, well, this doesn't make sense because his lungs are full of fluid, but he wasn't in the water. So he wasn't drowning, but his body looks like it's like he drowned it in the water. And it also seems like he's been underwater for over 30 days.
Yeah. And this is also when Nick explains that everything on the boat seemed like that. And he explains the setting of the boat. And the doctor just lets him know, I had a group of, I think it was teens or whatever, and they were found after spending several days having actually drowned, and they didn't look anywhere as bad as this guy. So he's just explaining, I don't know what happened, but something happened.
Exactly. And then mind you, while this is going on, we also get a little scene of where Elizabeth is inside the waiting room. Well, not waiting room, but whatever, the room with the body.
Examination room.
Examination room. And the body literally starts to get up and grabs a scalpel. And then right before it can get to her, it falls on the ground and carves 3 on the ground. So we know
3 have died, like I mentioned, and 6 will die based off the board that Stevie saw.
Yes. And then, so while all this has gone on, we've gotten the whole Father Malone storyline, we've gotten the Driftwood storyline, and then we've gotten back to the bodies being inspected at the hospital. Now we're actually it's starting to become nighttime, and the birthday anniversary, whatever you want to call it, is starting to undergo. All the celebrations starting to happen, and they're starting to put things together. And right around where they're going to start doing speeches and start to reveal the new statue and so forth. What happens is now the fog is starting to make its way back to the town. And we start to hear from Dan as he is coming in for the night because he was normally had the day off, but he's coming.
So is Dan the weatherman and the son? They're both named Danny?
No, his name's Dan.
Okay.
And then I think it might be Andy.
Andy. Okay.
Yeah, not Danny.
All right.
Andy.
Well, if you made it this far with us calling him Danny, his name's actually Andy.
Andy.
So you don't need to comment it.
Well,
we called ourselves
Danny and Andy, very close. Yeah. No, it's Andy. Sorry. But yeah. So Dan is doing his little thing, and he's flirting with Stevie. But now Stevie's like, something's fucking going on. So now she's more willing to actually kind of flirt back with him because she knows that he is her eyes on what this fog is doing because she knows something's not right with this fog. She's just got an eerie feeling on it. And he basically lets her know, he's like, well, I can see it on the weathermometer right here. And it's it should be here in 5 minutes. While this is going on, the fog has actually made it to the weather station. And
you hear another rap on the door.
Yeah, another rattling on the door. And Dan just, he's like, hold on, honey. Let me go check this out. And this scene, like, I get it. It's kind of like, it's a little cheesy, but I still think it's cute.
Yeah.
Because obviously he doesn't see any threat by it. And he's just happy that she's talking to him. So he's a little bit more like love, like uppity in his way he's speaking to her. Unfortunately, it ends up biting him in the ass because he's like, listen here, someone's playing a joke and they're not going to be happy when they find me. Hold on a second, honey. And she's like, Dan, get away from the door. Get away from the door. And he opens up the door and bam, we get another great, like I said, not a bloody kill, but still it's creepy. It's a little eerie. It's scary.
And so the moment he dies also, or I think right before he dies, maybe all the power cuts out. And that includes, I think it's right after he dies.
his power cuts out because it got to him first.
Yeah.
And then after his death, the fog's made it to the town power supply.
Yeah, and that includes the lighthouse that Stevie's in. However, she has a generator. So this is when it finally clicks for Stevie that something is really, really happening and it has something to do with the fog. So she uses the generator to get the station back up and running and starts to make a mayday call over the radio for 2 things. 1, to let everyone know that the fog's coming into town. And 2, to plead for anyone that's listening to please go help Andy. And she gives her address and she's pleading with anyone that can hear her that still has power one way or another to please go to her house and get her son Andy to keep him safe.
Yeah, and as she starts to pleading her address, this is mind you, like, Elizabeth and Nick are driving in his truck and he overhears this on the radio and he's like, okay, well, we're not too far from that. So he knows something's up and something's wrong. So they make it on their decision like, okay, let's actually go look, like, because he doesn't know anything about, Stevie Wade. He knows she's the lady of the radio station. And, he had a brief conversation with her earlier because he asked her some questions about the fog and kind of was trying to get some kind of answers, anything that she might have earlier because they were worried because they never found the bodies of the other men. And there was, a little scene at the bar where they were, basically they're worried like they might be dead because we found one dead guy, but we're still looking for the other 2. So he had a little light conversation with her, but he's taking the Good Samaritan, try to actually, okay, well, let's try to save this little boy because obviously there's a problem here.
Yeah.
And it cuts to Andy and Mrs. Coons. And basically,
Mrs. Coons.
What's her name?
Mrs. Cobritz.
Coons. But
names are not our thing tonight.
I don't know.
Take it or leave it.
I've got notes, but to be honest, I don't like actually looking at the notes. I probably should actually look at them. I type them up, but I try to do it all in my head. Anyway, so yeah. She is telling her, Andy, what's called to go around, lock all the doors, lock all the windows. We're staying in the house and so forth.
She lights a candle and she kind of just tells Danny, the power's just out. And she kind of Andy, and kind of just plays it safe with Andy until, again, someone's rapping on the door. So that's kind of how you know when something's going to happen is when a door starts rattling and then you see the fog kind of immerse from the doorway underneath the door jamb.
And it's glowing. That's a big thing. It's it's not a normal fog. It's glowing, which is very, very different. And, she opens the door to see who's there and she's telling, Andy, get away, get in your room. And, she looks out there and then once again, another chilling sound from John Carpenter's score. I wish I could play the music because really the sound effects are top notch creepy and you just have to hear it for yourself. I would play it if I could, but I don't want any copyright claims coming on the videos or whatever. But it's just a great little scene of just her getting grabbed and so forth. And it sucks because think about being a child. Now you're in your room and all of a sudden someone's breaking down the door of your room.
Yeah.
That is scary.
And then at the very last second, Nick ends up busting through the window and grabbing Andy and running off to the car and telling Elizabeth to take off. However, they are stuck in the mud as the fog and these, ominous figures are approaching the truck.
Yeah, and this is the thing is like they basically are able to rock loose, but just like literally, it's crazy because you get the arm coming in through the window of the truck. And the thing is, like they have nothing to save them. The windows have been blown out from earlier.
Yeah.
It's just a truck with open, like there is no safety. The only thing is it can take you from point A to point B.
Yeah.
So they end up getting out of the hole and driving off. Meanwhile, over the radio, Stevie is basically telling people, get out of town. If you can get out of town, get out of town. If you can't, go to the church. Go to the town's church. That seems to be one of the safest points right now. But whatever you do, stay indoors, get out of the fog.
Yeah, don't answer the door. Stay away from the fog. Get to the church if you can. And this is when you get not only Nick, Elizabeth, and Andy rushing to the church, but also Miss Williams and Sandy are in her car with Sandy driving, and they make it to town, and suddenly the fog is just engulfing the downtown area, and Elizabeth is trying to skirt the truck to the church. Same thing with Sandy. They're trying to take sharp turns, trying to do anything to, evade the fog.
Yeah, and also, not only is the town engulfed, now the actual lighthouse starts to be engulfed with the fog too as well. So they end up making their way to the church, and they're like, at this point, they're still super confused at what the hell's going on.
Yeah.
And they end up talking to Father Malone, and he's just sitting there. He's like, 6 have to die. And and they're like, oh, and they start, counting off people. They're like, he's like, it's one more. It's one more. It's me. They want me.
Yeah.
But really, it's not necessary that they want him. It's just,
they just
6.
Want somebody.
6 have to
6.
take the place. Yeah, 6 for 6, basically. And there's no rhyme or reason. You don't have to be a descendant of anybody.
Yeah.
It's just 6 have to take the place.
Yeah, but Father Malone feels like it's his duty, his religious duty to sacrifice himself since the town is going through this because of the the sins that his grandfather committed.
Yeah.
So the right thing to do is for him to sacrifice himself. So everyone kind of arrives at the church at the same time, everyone being Miss Williams, Sandy, Elizabeth, Nick, and Andy. Father Malone's already there and he's drunk. They get into the church and Nick is trying to convince everyone to go down in the cellar. Go down in the cellar, go down in the cellar. He breaks.
You gotta stay away from the windows.
Yeah,
you gotta stay away from the doors.
He breaks Father Malone's liquor bottle and kind of shuffles Father Malone into the basement. However, there are like little tiny, I don't know if you ever have been in a basement or cellar, there's these like little windows that are ground level, usually. And those start to get broken into by the fog, essentially the ominous figures of the fog.
Blake and his crew, basically.
Yeah.
The Elizabeth Dane.
Yeah, and as that's happening, the lighthouse is infiltrated as well. And Stevie is, she makes it upstairs, and we'll kind of maybe play a clip here. She makes it back upstairs in the broadcast room with, one of the ominous figures following her. And then she decides to step out on the other side of the glass door, even though she can still be seen, and start to circle around the lighthouse to try to make it to the tip of the lighthouse. Mind you, this is a cliche scary movie moment where it's like, where are you going to go from here?
That's the only way she can go. It's just up. That's all she can do.
Go up the steps if you're going to go up anything.
Well, the thing is, there's no, you mean go down the steps, but that's completely engulfed in.
Down the steps and up the steps to the road.
Yeah, I'm just saying, that's completely engulfed in the fog. She's trying to get away from the fog and going to the highest point. That's the only thing that she could think of.
Yeah, I guess try to get above the fog.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And also, meanwhile, while this has happened, we have found out a little bit more information about the journal that we didn't know earlier, but apparently the gold that was left over from the awful day that happened, the church melted it down and made it into a cross. Mm-hmm. So what Father Malone is going to do, he's going to sacrifice himself and the remainder of the gold to Blake. And this scene is super fucking cool. This scene is so cool. Okay, so now everyone's down in the cellar, and Father Malone has confronted Blake and his crew. And it is which this is the scene where like you get a really cool shot of the glowy eyes, and he just tells him he's like Blake, take me. Here's your gold. Let's this be over with. And he basically reaches out, grabs, he holds up the golden cross, and Blake grabs it. And then this giant, powerful light starts to radiate from the cross, which I love shit like this. The way that like this movie, which if you're a big fan of synthwave stuff, this movie, and especially like John Carpenter's score, it's crazy how things that are so cool looking back then that might not have been looked as cool in retrospect to current times, in my personal opinion, are super freaking cool. Like the way that scene is lit, you don't see anything but the red of his eyes, the glowiness of the cross. If you've seen the movie The Keep, it's very similar to that, which it came out around the same time. I believe that was 1982 or 81. I can't remember. But this is very reminiscent of the Michael Mann film, The Keep. And it's same vibe. Like I said, if you're a fan of synthwave and dark synthwave and stuff like that, like a lot of this stuff is this neon dark colors with bright neon lights are making a comeback. And this scene is so freaking cool. So freaking cool. Anyway, Nick comes in and he pulls Father Malone away from the cross, and Blake ends up vanishing with the cross. Right before this, we get what's called before Stevie is about to get murdered by the notorious worm face guy that was made by Barbeau protein. Right before he's about to kill her with the psych or silk, psy or whatever it's called. What's called the fog goes away, everybody vanishes.
Yeah.
And we get this like, it's over. We get this light covered ending as the fog starts to dissipate and everything starts to work again. She's able to make it back down to the radio station and to let everyone know that the fog has left. But to the sailors out there, if you can hear my call, beware the fog.
Yeah.
Let's call it, beware the darkness or whatever. And we get this scene where it cuts back to the church. Everything seems to be okay. And you think everything's over. And then Father Malone is, for some reason, he doesn't understand what's going on. He's like, I don't get it. They took the gold. Why didn't they take me? Why didn't they take me? And he walks right back into the chapel, and Blake and his crew's all back, and they cut his head off.
Yeah.
End of the movie.
Yep. It's a good ending.
And it cuts in the score. Dun, 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 dun. I don't know. I can't make them noises, but like I said, the music is amazing. It's amazing.
So back to our original question. We'll just roll right into that. Is it John Carpenter's scariest movie? Personally, I'd say no. The jump scares didn't really get me in this one. And maybe that's because like I don't really mind like pirates or ghosts. Like that stuff just genuinely doesn't scare me.
Well, I
like
would say
supernatural stuff. I mean, it can get scary, but I like it, so I don't think it was anything to be afraid of.
Okay.
And the jump scares, they weren't as like edged. So like when it comes to Halloween stuff, it edges you on sometimes to make you think that something's going to happen or someone's going to die, and then nothing happens. And then it like edges you on again to make you think something's going to happen, and then nothing happens. And then as soon as you start to like call or have doubts that something's going to happen, then someone dies. Gotcha. That's like it's like climactic, but then nothing. Climactic, then nothing, and then finally something happens. I think it's more that kind of stuff can be a little bit more scarier for me. So the fog really like was not scary at all.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Even the jump scares didn't scare you one bit? You didn't get caught by any of the jump scares?
Lightly, but I've definitely gotten caught worse by jump scares.
Okay. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Well, I will say, okay, so if you want me to answer the question, okay.
Well, yeah, we both have to. Whether I want you to or not. I mean, I do want to hear what you have to say, but nonetheless, you have to.
Okay, but what I will say is, I think it's an easy question. There's two, out of all the John Carpenter's films, I feel like there are actually two movies that are scary, in my personal opinion. Fog because of the jump scares.
Really, I feel like his other films has such better jump scares.
Let me finish. There's only 2. And The Thing.
The Thing didn't jump scare me at all either.
What are you talking about? The Thing's got tons of jump scares.
I don't know. None of those scared me.
What other movies? What other movie scared you from? I feel like those are his
Halloween
only.
gets me.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess it really is that people just get scared by certain things.
Yeah.
Because the thing is scary, to be honest, because like there's tons of scenes in The Thing where like you don't know what's going to happen, and there are jump scares, especially the petri dish scene with the blood, and then the defibrillator scene with the chest opening up, and like I said, that movie is very gory. Obviously, like much different than he had done so far. I mean, there was some gore. But it was bullets and stuff like there was some like there's some violence and Assault on Precinct 13, but
none of those jump scares got me.
Really? Oh, dang.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's just me or what. I don't know.
I'm sure. I mean, people, like you said, people are scared of different things. Certain things put people on edge. I think Halloween definitely has more jump scares personally for me than The Fog or The Thing.
What do y'all think? Let me know in the comments.
Yeah, let us know in the comments. Which one do you think has the best best or most jump scares, and then which ones you think were John Carpenter's like scariest films?
Exactly. And if you let me know what y'all thought about it. Did this movie actually scare you? Because I really do want to know. Like that's the thing is I really do want to know what people think about this film, because I really think it's really good. And like I said, a lot of people, the only way, if you search for something, you'll find it. But the thing is, as when you people are casually listening to their podcasts and casually looking up things or seeing things that other creators that they enjoy do, I just don't really see a lot of people talking about this one. Yeah. And that's why, yes, I'm sure there are videos about The Fog just like this one and stuff like that. But I wanted to talk about it because I personally just, the things that I view and what comes down my rabbit hole hasn't been a lot about this movie. So that's why I wanted to talk about it, because I really do enjoy it. And I wanted you to see it and see what you thought about it. So what, did you like it?
Oh yeah, I like it. Like I rewatch it.
Yeah, it's got a really good rewatch value.
I will say you kind of moved on to move the conversation a little too fast though. I will say though, I think that The Fog and The Thing probably didn't really get to me because when I was younger, the one thing I was really into is like watching haunted shows. So those kind of jump scares don't, I think I'm like too seasoned for them to like actually get to me. Like the whole like, spiritual, ghost, ominous, things like that.
You know what's scary?
What?
Unsolved mysteries.
I love
freaking
that.
Late at night with turn the lights off.
Best.
Shit.
That's the best.
No, I remember being like, my parents be out of town and I'd be at home for the night, and then it'd be like, it's like in 1986, a man came home and his wife was no longer there. This episode on Unsolved Mysteries. I'm like, turn that shit off.
No, I don't even
turn all the lights on the house. I don't even care
that it's unsolved. I'm like, tell me more. I'll solve it. It's good. That stuff doesn't really scare me. It intrigues me.
Rebecca Barker and John Stamos were driving on the road, and all of a sudden, a giant truck out of nowhere came out.
Yeah, and it's like, where'd it come from? I'm curious enough that I'm like, who cares that that's scary and like really fucking freaky? Tell me more.
Oh God, I don't mean.
All right, so this makes sense now why these things get to you.
Yeah, I mean, it's a ghost story. I get it. It's a little silly, but but it's still, I mean,
it's good. I'm not saying it's not good.
No, I will say I'm very happy that you liked it. Like you said, this movie definitely has rewatchability. Yeah. 100%, I think. And I'm like, if people disagree with me, that's fine. But I would like to see the people that do disagree or that do agree with me, because I don't know. I like this one. And I don't know. There's just something special about this movie. I like the actors in it. I like the vibe. I love the music, and it's such a good movie. So I'm happy that you like it, because for listeners that are new, we're like banning, I think 50-50. It's a 50-50 chance if Becca's going to like the movie or not, I would say.
That's gracious.
Okay, maybe it's like 60-40. 60-40, she's not going to like it. 40%, she's going to like it.
Yeah, usually.
Yeah.
I'm not, I like shows more than movies.
I know.
But everyone has their niche. But, so like I said, The Fog kicks off our Halloween month. You guys will be watching this within the first week of October. We are also happy to announce that we are doing a kind of like TV show / sitcom Halloween marathon. So we have 31 days of Halloween episodes of various TV shows that we will be watching, one for each night of the month of October, leading up to October 31st, Halloween. And at the end of each week, so every Sunday, you can catch us at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time live on our social media as we talk about the 7 last episodes that we've watched. I think we have like the Bob Burgers Halloween episode.
No, that's
No, we
not
didn't
it.
do that one.
No.
We did like various ones.
Yeah, so typically, this is
I don't want
something.
to dive into it too much.
Well, yeah, just let them know. Basically, what this is something that we do. Like during the
The Simpsons is one.
But what we do is during this holiday season, this is what we do independently. We just watch it on the couch and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I thought it was a cool idea to like make a list of all the ones that we want to watch, and we'll watch in one episode on every day. Usually we would binge watch it, but I was like, but it'd be nice to
share it with you guys.
Share it with you guys, and y'all can go down memory lane with us and kind of talk about what was one of your favorite episodes, or do you remember when that was on? TGIF and so forth like that. So yeah, you can look that up on our Instagram. I've got the list up there. Today. This episode comes out on Friday, so this Sunday we'll go live. And if you want to talk with us and hang out with us, come and join us.
We'll be there. And like I said, so it'll be every Sunday of the month of October, and then we will review the episodes that we watched that week. We'd be happy for you guys to join us and join in the conversation. That'd be great. As always, please don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, leave a review. We greatly appreciate it. It helps us get ourselves out there and get other like-minded or interested individuals access to our content. You can also go to videovilaentertainment.com to get any of our links there, including social media and where and how you can watch episodes or listen to them. So definitely feel free to check it out. And that was episode 46, The Fog, directed by John Carpenter. Was it John Carpenter's scariest film? Well, check this episode out to find out. And I'm Becca Hedrick with Video Vila Podcast.
And I'm Logan.
And we'll see you guys next time.